You all set?
Yep. I'm all set.
Okay. I am going to call the meeting to order. The meeting of the Hopkinton Budget Committee, Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. We are here in person and folks have been given the opportunity to join via Zoom as well. Thank you all for coming. It's nice to see you in person. It's been a long time.
Yes.
We will start with the pledge, although I'm looking for the flag.
Right in back of you.
Thank you. Steve.
Make sure they do.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, we last met on May 12th, 2021, and thank you to Cindy for putting together some excellent minutes. They have been distributed to the committee, and I wanted to entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve the minutes of May 12, 2021.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, great. So let's open it up to the comments and discussion.
There is a 126,000 unreserved fund balance. That was, it was exceeding the reserve fund balance by 126,000 at that present time. So the fund balance wasn't at 126. We were exceeding our goal of 126, an additional 126.
Okay, so I want to make sure that, Cindy, do you feel like you've got the suggested change in Norm?
You want the wording to be changed that it was, we were exceeding the goal of over 126.
An additional 126.
An additional.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say the fund balance was estimated to be 600,000. At that present time, it was 126,000 over the projected unreserved fund balance by 126,000.
Any other comments this evening on the minutes? Okay, so let's vote on the minutes as amended, the proposed amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstain? All set. I'm sorry, forgive me. Does anyone need an agenda tonight? There's some copies printed
Yeah,
out.
I'd love one, please. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Norm, we're going to turn it over to you for a school district building and financial update, and also welcome to our new superintendent joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here in person. Actually, this is actually my first budget committee meeting in person. I had been sitting over there many years ago, so it's a great time to be in person and to actually be with you guys and actually discuss our district in person and stuff. So it's great to be here. After I give a little bit of an update regarding the school district, I'd like to invite Mr. Glenn over here to have a discussion with us and introduce him. I'm excited he took time out of his busy schedule to come and meet with us today. I handed everyone a packet that I wanted to walk through with you tonight. Has everyone received it? Perfect.
Can I take them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'd like to discuss a little bit is our building project. Since we last met, I wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of what has happened in the building project because a lot has happened. We're getting towards the finish line, and just give you guys a little bit of what's happened in our building. Just a quick summary. High school, we've done the music room fully remodeled, exterior windows, the science and technology lab, computer lab, flooring, media, the gym, new rooftop, and air handling unit. Some other things over at Maple Street, we've done the computer room. That's been newly remodeled, flooring in the media center, window glazing, lots of flooring, Over at Harold Martin,
Norm, I interrupt you for a second. Would you pull the microphone over so it's not right behind your computer?
Yeah,
People will listen, and if there's anybody. they'll hear you better.
There's nobody on.
for the record.
For the record.
I apologize. Would you like me to start over?
No, that's okay.
Okay, all right. So over at Harold Martin, we have the sprinkler system online. The addition's complete. Considerable new furniture for all 4 classrooms. Nurses suites new, 4 new classrooms, exterior finishes and lawns in the parking lots has been new scaled and coat and stuff. That's just a little bit of a summary. As of right now, the building project's going great. And if you walk in there, you kind of would be a little nervous about school opening up in a couple of weeks, but it's going to be complete on time, which is really great. We have delivered everything that has been promised to the taxpayers in this project. Most important, we did this at the best time due to the bond being so low on our first one, which was at 176. Last night, Michelle came back and told us that it was at 183 for the second half of the bond payment moving forward. So based on our budget that we allocated for this school year, we save about $39,000. This $39,000 goes into the unreserved fund balance. And we start basically from that point on, anything that's saved goes into there. So one thing that was really important since our last budget committee meeting, if you look at the bond project document, I want you guys to go to the last page where it's been highlighted in progress. So as you know, the district promised the taxpayers a significant amount to the bond, and then we had some extra funds in which we were able to do fire suppression, we were able to do additional 4th classroom, everything's outside the scope of the project. They came back with an additional savings that we were able to improve our district with paving the entrance, BPS additional parking, some more glazed windows, which is basically more deferred maintenance, made the computer lab a lot bigger, more flooring, and more additional work just to continue to improve the schools. Just simply alleviating pressure on the CIP and being able to continue to add to the project. And that was approved back in June. The school board added more into it, with more, some more furniture fixtures, for example, at Harold Martin's conference room, and more stuff at the library, of course, because these were additional things that was not part of the scope of the project. So in order to finish the room, you got to have finished goods because it was not part of the original project. So it was an empty space. Now you got to fill it. So we are getting close to the finish line. By the end of this month, we will be complete. And the only thing that will not be complete will be the lab over at the middle high school. We understood that it's going to be a 2 weeks delayed because of how we ended the school year last year. So before we even started work, there was an abatement that needed to get done. And that's the only thing that's going to be a little bit delayed. But other than that, we're going to be up and running. We're getting furniture and fixtures going, and we're staying on budget. We're on time, and we're going to open up. So I'm happy to answer your questions about the building project. I'm very pleased to see it's gone well, fiscally responsible, and just been a blast working with Mike and the building committee.
Congratulations on that project.
Yes, thank you. No, it's, and I'm looking forward to when we have an opportunity to give you guys a tour. It's just beautiful. And the only thing I will comment about, and Mr. Mike can comment a little bit, is that we did have a little bit of a flood over at at Harold Martin, and we have worked through it with the appropriate people in the district. No hiccups, no issues with us opening up on school. We have all the insurance carriers involved and everything, and we are moving forward in a positive way to get this going.
What was the flood from?
What would you classify the description of how weather? Yeah.
One of the 18 rainstorms we've had so far, the 2 trees, one tree fell at the end of the runoff of the pipe, wood, this way, and then one tree with 3, so pine needles clogged the drain on both sides. So it was the perfect storm. Since then, we've cleared out the end of the pipe, pulled the debris, the tree out, we road it, and also sending, having a camera sent down to check the health of the pipe, make sure that it wasn't damaged in between. So it has not backed up since we've cleared, but we want to assure that it's not going to happen.
I think the most interesting test was we had a lot of rain. Great for the farmers. I know, Rich, it's great. But we had just a little bit of one little screw over at the high school that had a little bit of an issue with dampness. After that was fixed, we had all this rain. I mean, it was flooded and we had nothing after that. And to me, that was a great test because I was like, you know what? I can sleep a little better at night knowing there's no floods because we all know where Norm is on flooding on the, in the school. So I was really happy to hear that we didn't have any issues with the roofs. That was really important.
If it didn't leak this summer, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, agreed. And as you guys know, with the roofs, we have a whole color coordinated chart of when they need to be replaced, when the lifeline is on that. And, that goes into CIPs, of course, when they need to be done. There will be a built CIP based on this project from HL Turner that will give this district an understanding of what needs to be done, what needs to be replaced. And it's our job to maintain the facilities once this project is done.
Great. Thank you for that. Any other questions for Norm on that
Yeah.
facilities? Yeah.
The $5,000 for the HL Turner study on air cooling, is that air conditioning? I hope.
That's over at the high school. That was part of
So
the,
that was part of the money at the end of the year.
Yep.
So last meeting.
Yep.
So that study is actually not. So believe it or not, we wanted to wait until the students were there because studying at the building, but it's not really valuable or accurate, especially with all our sweaty children. So we're waiting for them to return and the study will look into what we spoke.
Thank you. So needed to get some air conditioning into those top floors. Thank
and
you.
that was like one of those things in at the last thing we did in June, our reserve fund balance was allocated some money to that so we could have a study done.
But that, again, 5,000 would buy 25 air conditioners, right? So window air conditioners.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have a study to make sure you know what you're buying in order to make sure you're making it optimal for what's being required, and
That's smart.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, is it 2 steps back, take a step forward? I mean, maybe, but the study will give you not just the short term, but what do we need long term? And I think that's what this community is.
Perfect. Thank you.
Now, can you give a rough estimate as to what percentage of the roofs on all the buildings have been new roofs, basically?
I'd have to look at the color coordinated chart. It's a good question. I can get back, and I think the best way is to show you that chart because when you look at the chart, you can kind of figure out what the color coordinated scheme that we have. We have the roofs that have been done on this project, and then we have the timetable when the other ones have been completed. So I'm happy to bring that to you so you can see it.
I'm just curious. If it's about a third or three.
I don't want to throw a number out there. I believe it's posted. I made it available because there's a little uproar when we had some leaks. That was not part of the facilities project. And to me, I said, hey, I want to show the community where and what has been replaced. So I can put you in the direction for that. So.
Norm, I'm glad that you're doing the study on the air circulation, and I hope that as the board considers that HL Turner is going to look at energy efficiency issues and how this might align with at least the conversation the school board's having about aiming for carbon neutrality. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. I think it'll give us a couple paths forward, Mark, where we can look at and investing that money into the right way and having those options things is important.
So if you're looking at net neutrality, looking at solar on the roofs?
I don't know. I don't think that there's, I know there was a presentation from the students regarding having put solar panels on the roof. We haven't dug deep into that yet due to not being in person and not having us together. But I know that there's been a presentation from the students, which I need to praise Mike of and talk at some point for him to review. But we haven't had that discussion yet. We're just finally starting to meet in person and getting things going.
It's on one of the future agendas after we open school, that conversation of coming back
Yeah.
So we'll certainly hear about it this school year on one of the agendas.
Perfect. So the next thing I'd like to go, I'm gonna talk about Esr Grants a little bit. I kind of did this in order of when we posted it, when we accepted some funds, and we also accepted some last night, but kind of give you guys a little bit of overview. You guys understand that Esr's been used, it's COVID relief a little bit. Kids have fallen behind, throughout school, ways of getting kids caught up, being able to take these funds and being able to use it for our students to really improve our schools. As you can see in the public notice, we accepted some relief federal funds in there that are clearly stated from the Esr grant. This was on June 3rd. This is something that we had a public hearing on, we accepted, and kind of helped with, having outdoor eat-in, having, streaming for graduation, just stuff that we were able to use. I spoke to Michelle today, and we have like $100 left in there in the Esr grant one. It's going to be going to like supplies. So she's like, she doesn't miss a dime. Like she's always going after every single penny. So that was our first Esr grant hearing that we had. Moving forward, I think the next thing that was important was the for Esr 2 and Esr 3 grant. We discussed this last night as we held the public hearing. And as you can see, there's Esr 2 and Esr 3. These are estimated amounts. These are not an actual set number. We could get more. We don't know, but this is what has been projected to this district. So as you can see in Esr 2 and Esr 3, Michelle has made a run-in document basically of what approximately might be using this money for. We have 35,000 allocated for support for outdoor classroom and break lunch. We may only spend $32,000. She's the only one she's really thrown stuff out there that's pretty much locked in is additional desks needed to support social activity, stuff like that. Looking at hiring an additional numerous assistant, approximately 50,000, and then for 0.60. I asked Michelle last night, hiring someone for this position, is this a sub-plan in the budgeting process that we would carry over to the next budget? That's not necessarily true. These are discussions we're going to be having as a board throughout the budget process. We're going to look at the evaluation of our students, determine whether or not we need to continue having a position like that. The superintendent will be working with his leadership team and say, hey, we need to continue, this specific position in the district. So what's great about this document is it is live on our website, where every time that there's a withdrawal or something that comes out of this or whatever it is, the community is notified. We have a public hearing, and people can see in real time what the school district is doing with the grants. You can see on here that they're good through 2023 and 2024. Do you guys remember last year? We were in a rush to spend money back at the end of December because we had to use it or lose it. And so I think in your district, Mike, you had the same situation where you had to. Now we have plenty of time in order to do that. Does everyone have any questions about the Esr 2 and Esr 3 grant? It's a great thing, but as you know, there's quite a bit of additional stuff, moving forward.
I guess first, this comes from the American Rescue Plan dollars.
Mike,
This is the educational. I should know the name by now, but it's part of that package.
And there's, from looking at the different projects here, there's really no criteria. You're not limited in what you can use it for.
Yeah, that's a great question. A more specific answer. The easiest way to wrap around it is they have to not have been budgeted for on the previous 2 years' budget cycles.
So it's new revenue, but budgeted expenses.
So if we bought 54 Chromebooks last year that were budgeted for, you couldn't buy 54, right? You could say that through COVID we need another 180. It's to help unbudgeted
think on the town side, we have much stricter criteria. And that's why I
The
asked.
previous ESR one was much stricter.
Mhm.
This one has allowed that flexibility, but it's also not as flexible as it sounds, meaning if you're gonna tie it to anything facilities, it has to be tied to essentially code somehow. So upgraded air quality. I'm not sure air conditioning would qualify for that. Like there's a couple of hoops that you have to jump through for that. So that's why you see here on the living document, the things that we targeted initially are an additional teacher that we didn't budget, right? Converting part-time to full-time. So that's allowed us the flexibility to target each stretch.
Mhm. Thank you.
Do you have any data yet, or are you planning to aggregate data on any potential setback from the entire student body on the learning situation last
Yeah.
year? Like,
Loss of learning.
yeah,
Yep, so loss of learning is a priority,
Okay.
not just for us, I think probably.
for everyone.
But more specifically to Hopkinton, it's gonna be an area where we dipsticking multiple times to see. I know you guys are in and out and in type of thing. So really we wanna make sure we're assessing and targeting our students to see if there's a gap, where the gap is, large and small. To put it in perspective, majority of the meetings that we've done statewide, shockingly, it's not as big as a gap as we all anticipated. In some of the response to that is actually a flip. So a lot of our students who did not like coming to school excelled greatly at home. And some students that excelled in school may have struggled at home. So really, what we're seeing is essentially a flip of the data. But more specifically, there will be interventions targeting our students, and that's why we hired numeracy and literacy as a full time. So those are two areas in the early.
Okay, can you, so I understand that these are like estimates, but can you wait and see for the results of some of those dip tests to then redetermine how you're going to allocate some of the funding? Can you be responsive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best part about the 3 years, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be locked in. Let's just say by middle, say January, February, probably a good middle of the year. If we're seeing our math gap is not as large as we thought, then that allows us next year to target maybe 2 reading specialists rather than 1 math. That flexibility of the time is huge for districts, huge. Again, just to put an example, ESR one, we came back in September. I don't think we had the money till maybe October. We had to spend it by December 31st. So that was challenging for a lot of districts, but this has allowed that flexibility for us.
Would you anticipate that the real struggle in that study will be not academic, but psychological?
Yeah, social emotional will be huge. Mental health, there's a reason why, DCYF calls have gone up. There's a reason why children are struggling to return to school. So the student support service area is going to be an evaluation piece for us as well this year. So when we talk about dipsticks, we're not just dipsticking academically, we're dipsticking social emotional or counseling services and the student service department. But it's also going to be a time for the parents and the schools to connect more. I don't think more regularly is the right word, but I don't want to say back to normal either, but you know what I mean? It's almost back to routine where the parents can call the school and say, hey, Mike had a hard time last night, can you check in on him today? Where Mike had a hard time last year, he wasn't going to school to have anyone be able to assess, and he might have it submit. So it's going to help with that question as well.
And some of this money might be dedicated to new people hired to do that.
We talked about it today, and actually coming out of Rotary later now, I got decided, and we talked about maybe an additional guidance counselor, student service part at that level, the middle high level, not necessarily the elementary. So it's good and bad. And that is obviously there's going to be value to these positions, right? But they're also 1 year. So that's the challenge that we have to face on budget cycle is, do we incorporate it in the budget? Can we support it in the budget? Because this money is going away. So that's going to be the value of what we're trying to figure out.
Hopefully that need would be 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah, you hope those gaps close,
Right.
right? And you can return to and I hate using that word, because it's not ever gonna be normal. Return to our new.
Hopefully with numeracy, I doubt with social and emotional that that's going to be a one-year recovery. Um,
Awesome. So if you have any more questions.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I knew, for the hires, so it sounds like they're unbudgeted new hires. We're not sure how long we're not sure if they're permanent or temporary, but they're not currently in like future planning budgets, right? So
That's a discussion. I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna look at the data. He'll make a recommendation. It's gonna be talked about at the board. That was a question a lot of people have asked in the past regarding grants. When you hire someone, is it subplant into the next couple of years? And that's a very important question to ask because, you hire someone at 100,000 for, 4 or 5 years, it's important that you ask that question.
Simple answer is, this is unbudgeted. And we will evaluate if it needs to be a sustainable position or if it will be a one.
Right. I think like the primary concern is because we always get to like January and then we're fighting over small percentage increases in budget. And so if this sticks around for a certain period of time, which could be a very, very good thing if it does, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm just cautious about not even this year, 2022, when we'd be talking about the effects of how that would. So I'm just, yeah.
Good point.
Are you, is this all, I see when it's good through, but are all these proposed expenditures here on the live form going to happen in this?
Live year 1 through 6 has been hired this summer. 7 has been switched, it's just in this position switch. 1 and 2 are again, person we already have on staff. So we're now making full time. It's the easiest way to say it, so.
So the intention is spend all the money school year.
No,
No.
well, that's what we have right now budgeted.
Right, okay.
That other money that's sitting out there, we're still yet to identify. Example, we thought.
Oh, I
we
see,
had-
right.
Yeah, we thought we hadn't identified every middle high school, but after talking, we didn't feel like it was a necessity to open school, start school. So we pulled that back.
Right, okay, so you've got about 290,000 is undesignated here. I got you. Thank you.
Looking at this page, it shows the Esr approximately 382,000.
Yep.
Esr 270,
That's an estimate
that's
though.
550 versus what was in the public hearing was 367.
Say that again.
It's a good question.
On the page, it says Esr 2 at the top, 170,000.
Yeah.
And then further down, Esr 3, approximately 382.
I believe that number, I could be wrong with that number, so SU2 had already, partial bit had already been accepted at previous board meetings. So the last night was the discussion around the new acceptance of what we planned.
Fair enough, thank you.
Great. If nothing else, I'd like to move on. I submitted financials, but I think the most important financial, if you have any questions about that, I wanted to talk to you guys starting off with June 9th. So if you can get your June 9th financials, I would like to walk you through our column of June 9th. And if you can, place the memo of the unreserved fund balance right next to it, please, side by side.
Hold on,
Hang on a second.
hold on, do we get it?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Is this the one you want?
So you want, nope, so you want to put the Hopkinton School District June 9th and then the memo on June 15th, side by side.
I got that one.
And the June 9th. That
So
has
this
the
would be
red-
just this page, so the general fund and then the memo from June 15th, side by side.
Oh, not this.
Yeah, no. So, is everyone ready? I'm sorry. I make it more complicated than it.
Hang on.
It's okay.
To get
We
through.
we haven't found the fund balance.
Page 1 and 2.
That's the fund balance one.
This one. This and that.
Yeah, so this,
The June 30th. fund
June,
balance.
this June 9th, June 9th, and then the June 15th memo fund balance.
That's
It
right.
says
And then
June
this is
9th. You're saying it's not right, so. Is that the one I need for the fund balance?
No, you want to do it for the June 9th. That one's next.
The older one.
June 15th.
Yeah, so you want to put that one in your right, and then you want to put June 9th in your left.
Yes, you want that.
Perfect.
All right, gotcha.
That's not the fund balance. That's not. Oh, yeah, you got it. Yeah.
The June 9th, so the June 9th general fund. Jim O'Brien's probably laughing over
We're a
there.
little out of practice here.
I know, it's in person.
And then with the memorandum, do you want dated June 10th, or do you want the memorandum dated?
June 15th, June 15th. So June 15th in your right, and then June 9th in your left. So the reason for that is, on June 9th, as you know, Michelle prepared documents for the school district, basically to anticipate our unreserved fund balance. So when we go look to our June 9th, one number I want you guys to look at is 1.0621991. On June 9th, Michelle came up with this number and determined that she was going to bring this number to the Hopkinton School Board to discuss on June 15th in order for the board to have a discussion on how we are going to allocate the unreserved fund balance. So what I wanted to share with you guys, I know I made it a little more harder than it needed to be, was to compare the numbers of the document to the memo. So we can see there's a 1.062. The board was presented with this number. As you can see in June 9th, Michelle has to do a lot of work in 21 days before the district closes. She has to encumber all outstanding POs. She has to encumber all salaries, all benefits, everything that it is that she believes that needs to be encumbered in order to end of the rest of the school year. So I want you guys just to notice the amount that she encumbered. She encumbered what she felt was $303,094,000 on June 9th. So when we move over to the memo, to your right, we start at the memo from Michelle where we say the unreserved fund balance is 1.062. As you know, the school board committed to reduce taxes 542,000. We also committed from the warrants 100,000 from the district meeting, and then 25,000 to fund the technology trust. All of this comes out of the fund balance. And as you can see, the running total, after doing that, we have a total, and in replenishing Article 10, 250,000, we were left with $144,229. It's important to know about the decisions we knew back on June 9th. This is what the board knew then. So with this amount of the remaining balance, the board from the superintendent, I think Mike also kind of chipped into some ideas what he wanted to look regarding into the fund, into what we wanted to put towards for this unreserved fund as we decided to purchase some more furnitures and fixtures for the building project. We had made additional parts in the schools where we needed to add furniture. We needed to order them now because the long lead times of not getting them in would not have happened for school to start. We decided to do some adult in the sense of doing some more work on the parking lot. We did some more stuff to help alleviate pressure in our CIP from the fund balance, some new financial software, the MSS SAU fence for $6,400. And then Rich, if you look below that, you can see that the $5,000 right there was allocated to the air-cooled study that came out of the unreserved fund balance.
Okay.
So after all said and done, we came to the amount of 7,000 as a running total that kind of was going to go towards added to Article 10. But it's important to remember, okay, that's June 9th. Michelle encumbered a lot of money, you know, based on what she had for open POs. Of course, additional revenue comes in from the state. We encumber other additional things of people not taking early retirement and additional things that happen in a daily operations. The 1.062 is no longer the 1.062. Does anyone have any questions before I move on?
Yes, the 136,000, is that also all used out of the bond proceeds? Because you mentioned 5,000. Is everything there?
No, she posted it into that. She tries to keep it as a separate document, so it's not coming out of the general fund. So she tries to keep one running document where she kind of posts it into there. If you remember, at one point when it came to the bond project, we had to, I don't know if the right word is a journal entry, kind of posted in the books that we had to replenish some funds in order from the bond project and do movements in there. So basically, since she's trying to keep track of the bond project, it's allocated to that, and that goes part into that.
So where the 136,000 part is funded out of the bond project.
It doesn't come out of the bond, it's just part of it comes to the, it shows what has been allocated to the fund, allocated to the bond project. So this is not bonded. This $5,000 is not bonded.
It's general.
Pardon me?
It's just general unreserved.
Yeah, unreserved, boom, go into that.
Except,
Yeah.
extra money.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to bond $5,000. I mean, this is something that's going strictly.
Okay, what I'm not following, Norm, is,
Yeah.
because I'm thick,
No,
is simply the air cooling study, $5,000. I thought you stated earlier that
No, I think what he said was on which basically contributes to the fund balance. And that was one of the things that you essentially tagged as a use of those savings. That's how
you can, this is from our, so the savings that we got from the bond project would be the interest and stuff can be allocated to other stuff that's part of the project. But the way that Michelle posted it, I could absolutely ask her, because I can see it on the building tax right here. We have 5,000. I think it's not the total here. It's posted. Adult that we did.
yeah, I think the way,
Okay, I'm sorry if I confused you. Cool.
fair enough, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
all right, so you've caught us up through June 15th.
Yeah, so we're gonna fast forward to last night. 12 hours ago, or 24 hours. So now that we've moved past June 9th, Michelle last night came back with an approved audit, which her and her team had worked on. And if you take the June 30th financials, you can all see that there's a sudden jump from 1.62 to 1.421. Now, we all would jump in with joy if we woke up and 21 days later, our checking account was filled with a little extra cash. But I mean, this all results from things that, I'll wait till Wednesday, I apologize. So you want to take June 30th, and then you want to put the financial analysis.
Hold on a second, I haven't found June 30th.
That's okay.
June 30th, how's that?
Yep, so June 30th, and then the financial analysis of district funds.
What's that page look like?
This right here.
Three pages.
Oh.
822.
So it's gonna be.
So it went from 1.06 to 1.24.
So it went by, no, it went to 1.06 with the unreserved fund balance, and then it went to 1.421. So if you look at June 30th,
Memorandum or the,
so you want to look at June 30th, 2021's general fund,
not this one.
yeah, general fund. So if you look in column, the middle column, you see June 9th, 2021. You see in the previous document, we talked about 1.062. We compared the two totals and the board worked with that specific number. So now we rewind to after the audit's been completed from Michelle. The audit came back with an unreserved fund balance of 1.421. As discussed earlier, on June 9th, Michelle had to do her absolute best to uncover all open POs, all the things that it takes to run our district and put it into her best estimate to give to the board back on June 9th. And after the audit was complete, this number came forward last night. When you look at the financial analysis of the district funds, you can see as the district completed the year, its general fund reported a combined fund balance of 1.837. Well, the first thing that I learned was, well, why is it the 1.837 don't match the 1.421? Great question mark. And I learned, just like everyone here, that's a combination of all our funds together. And the auditor requires that when we do an audit like this, we have to allocate all our funds together in order to be shown where the money has gone. So as you can see from last year, an increase from last year's fund balance of 1.2409. So basically, when the audit is, Mike, the audit's not approved, it's just this part, right? One which the audit's approved?
No.
The audit's not approved,
Finalized.
it's final. So when we approve the audit, the book will have this specific page in there, and it explains exactly how we use the unreserved fund balance, where it went, why it went this way. We didn't use all our salaries, all our benefits. Some people didn't take early retirement. We used it from additional sources that we were able to use in order to allocate some of our funds and expenses. So basically, I know Mr. Don Houston's always wants to be able to see how we do this at the end of the year. And I know it's something the finance committee has always wanted to dig more deeper into, to be able to share something like this. And this is showing the community exactly what has been used out of the unreserved fund balance that's been allocated and the general fund balance returned to the town while funding our trust fund articles that we had borrowed. Just sharing all the information so everyone understands where it went. I don't want to call it an exercise, but I wanted to share with the budget committee the time stamps of how the unreserved fund balance changed. So from June 9th, we knew what we knew. We knew we had a higher unreserved fund balance on the day of June 30th, when it closed, because last year was a very unique year. We had things from the budget that was might have been spent through grants, through other things that all went to the unreserved fund balance, and that's why it was significantly a lot higher. So it was a unique year. We don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but this is one of the steps of us being able to show the community and the budget committee in the early stages of what went where.
I'm beginning to see the tracking of this thing. But when the different terminology is presented, like up in the middle of this, it talks about amount to reduce taxes, that everybody understands.
Yeah.
And you get down to the bottom, another term might be used as fund balance unreserved. And those to the normal person just looking at this at a glance, gets very confused.
Yeah, and it's in.
And I don't know if I don't think there's a solution to it because it's accounting terminology.
Well, to be really honest, I've had to learn the vocabulary here too. and this is my profession. So it's up to us to do a better job of communicating to the public, to the boards, whatever it may be, but it was through my interview process specifically, I said, I don't know what I'm looking at sometimes. And that's up to us to clarify and really communicate. So I can certainly communicate.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to answer any questions about anything I presented tonight before I move on. That was a lot to unpack. I know the challenge is going to be different than you, but
I'll certainly try to.
Is the 42,915 just an error in an Excel spreadsheet and that's supposed to be?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
Good catch.
yeah. She noticed that actually today, but that is correct. So it should have been a
Okay, I
6:30.
think I did a spot check. It's not being added into the total.
Yeah, no, I think she has an error on one of her sheets, which I think she was aware of today, actually, when we were talking.
Now, another general question. This is on the year-to-date budget status report. It shows the total amount of the bond for the construction project, and you're pretty much through that now.
Yeah.
But it shows here that you still have 4,299,000 encumbered. So that just hasn't been paid out yet.
Well, we have to, the
That's-
second
that-
half of the bond, yeah. So the second half of the bond, we just got through for and the rate and all that. So once that all comes in, this PO is already out there. And so that
The
will,
construction company has done the work. They're just waiting for payment.
Yep.
Right, thank you.
yeah. Well, you want me to continue?
Carry on,
All right.
man.
Great.
Great.
All right, so one of the things that was important to me was the relationship with the budget committee. Since I've been here, it's been very important to work with you guys, have discussions with you, and just continue the relationship and continue to grow as a community and as a budget committee. So one of the first things I asked when Mike joined the district was to invite him to the budget committee, because to me, it's important to get him here sooner than later, to be able to talk to you guys and to be able to share his thoughts and his plans moving forward regarding our budget process, regarding the district. So it has been my privilege to be able to have the opportunity to be one of the 5 board members to hire Mike. It's been an enjoyable experience working with him through the building project, through our last couple meetings. It's real great to have him here to talk to you guys and give you guys some information. Our new superintendent of schools, Mr. Mike Flynn.
Thanks, I appreciate it. It's you have a learning curve. This committee, and the school committee, and I'm learning it. It's not a process that I've been following for the last 10 years. So the part that excites me is it's far more of a partnership. It makes more value and brings greater discussion amongst the town and the school, right? The school's always the bad guy in the budget process. And that's just the way the structure of the picture is, right? We're so fiscally tied to the taxpayer that bad guy may be the wrong word, but that's the majority of the taxes it's going to the school. So this allows that communication between this committee and the school district, and it allows us to communicate a lot. Why do we need the rediscussions? Why do we need that? So it allows for more transparency through our process and more partnership with the town, and I think that's going to bring significant value. More specifically, from where we were a single entity, and it was only the school budget was presented, and it wasn't so much of a partnership. So I'm really looking forward to that work. Next part is, I think through the interview process, I really talked about, they were really budget hawks through the interview process. And that's a compliment to them. Actually, my intense interview, my final interview, they gave me basically, good luck, you need to present our budget for next year. And I had to plan and prepare, not knowing anyone, anything, and come with a budget to talk about. So what I did talk to them about, though, were some of the things that I've instituted, or we instituted, that help provide that transparency in a better budgeting process. And the one thing that you'll see out of the school this year is I hope our budget's done by October 31st. I want to be done and complete. That allows that opportunity for more discussion here, more communication with the community, more transparency. So far, everyone I said that to has laughed at me, so, but I've been a part of it, we've done it. Yeah, does it crunch us at the beginning of the year, meaning September? Sure. Does it make for long Octobers? Yeah, but the success that comes from being completed around that late last week of October, first week of November, it allows that November, December to be far easier on everything else. So the administrative team is already aware, Michelle's aware, and actually Michelle, it's already started. So those are some of the timelines you'll see out of us. I think they're achievable, even though they're massively, but it's a great goal to have. And I really believe with the goal of our target's going to be flat. I think that's the target that show we're fiscally responsible out of the school system, value the taxpayer. So I'm open to any questions. That's kind of my soapbox deal on the budget and the budget process and what.
Commend you on that thought. No, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's a whole new approach.
And I'll add one thing, which I'm really excited about. You know, we're going to be doing our budgeting process in public. So we have meetings lined up coming up where we're going to be having just meetings to discuss the budget. Yeah, it's sort of like what the select board has done. You know, they kind of went through the budget, they talked about it, you know, talking to other people coming to us to talk about it. It's a new feeling, you know, and I think it's something that I'm excited, you know, to come talk to you guys about, bring it back to the board and continue to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's another change. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
You're going to see the building administrative team present their budgets. Community needs to hear why Mr. Kelly and Ms. Gagnon need or ask for money or something. It needs to come out of their voice. They're the ones that are in that building. Here, Mr. Weber, Mr. Carosa. I thought it was so valuable as a principal at Timberlane that I got to say, hey, community, here's what I need, here's what I see every day. And then with the support of the superintendent and the budget committee, it allowed, and it's just that communication so that it doesn't look, it's their dollar. So why do you need flexible furniture? Well, in our classrooms, it allows for multiple seating for our students that we can do small group, big group. You can connect any flexible seating to industry. Many of the powerful companies have flexible seating. You're not stuck in the I'll call them the ski lodge chairs or whatever it may be. So I think that's going to be a part of transparency. You see from the building administration what they're talking about and how excited they are about things. So I think that'll help too.
When you mentioned that your target is flat budget, tell us more about what you mean by that and why and where does that target come from? That's something that the school board has already discussed and
I think it was early talks. It's important to us. We're in negotiations this year, so both memberships will be in negotiation. So it's a goal for us, right? The fiscally responsible thing to do with the school system to come in flat because knowing that there's going to be two contracts. Two contracts. If we're coming in and they're coming in, then that's going to be. I don't believe that that's fiscally responsible. Priority should be the teachers this year, and the HE messing up the letters.
HESS.
HESS,
Yep.
the support staff. That should be the priority. We can figure out how to operate from these numbers clearly. That we should be able to come in at a number that should support that contract. Town should support that staff, and then that allows us to say next year, hey, we came in flat. Here are some things that we may have not talked about last year because that was a priority. Now this one's a priority. I've also met with Neil and we've talked about, you know, town priorities being 1 year, school priorities being next year, and really trying to build that relationship so that it's not always us asking for something and not always them asking for something. Really trying to get in some type of plan in place so that it's digestible to the taxpayer. So important. Rather than us continuing to ask, it's really showing the value of what we're doing. It's like a kid, right? I need a new Barbie. Sorry, I have a daughter. I need a new Barbie. I need a Barbie. What about the 75 you have in the closet? You know, we're gonna show you that I'm not gonna continue to buy Barbies. We're gonna buy something for a reason. So going back to the specific coming in flat, I think that's just been the discussion. I really wanna, that's a fair target for us this year, coming out of the pandemic with what we did last year and knowing that it was a losing contract.
And I think in the future, in our next couple of board meetings, we're gonna be sharing our goals. It does impact what Mike's gonna be doing, what the board's looking for, and I think it'll be, once we have that discussion in public, I think it'll be really great to hear what the board's thinking of, what they want to do regarding CIP, finances, plans and stuff like that we've always been hearing about, projecting 2 years out. Is that something we can do? We know, not this budget, but next year, I'm losing track of years, guys. Early retirement is something that comes up. That's a huge hit to the district. So how is that something that we can continue to look forward to? Sort of, CIP, CIP plan like your town has, really in depth and moving forward like that. So.
And the other thing that we're going to work on is a strategic plan.
Yeah.
That will help us see a budget track. So we're going to develop a 5-year strategic plan with goals and objectives that are not only just tied to curriculum or operations, but also facilities and CIP, so that, hey, in 5 years, we're going to need this. And so when we're 4 years away, remember we talked about this last year, here it is in the CIP, we're going to need this now in 3. It becomes a document that can help drive discussion. So it's not, where the heck did this come from? Why all of a sudden this? What? I don't know how to do it. So we have a lot of work to do this year, but I think cleaning some of that up will allow for greater transparency, but also fiscally responsible and also planning. Big fan of knowing what's coming rather than before it.
And Mike, I appreciate your comments, and certainly, the cooperative working with the select board and with Neil is something that we would all strive for, because I don't want to get caught in a position that's either the town or the school or at odds. We certainly don't want to do that. We're all the same thing. One thing that in the past, the school has gone to a different health insurance approach than the town. And my impression has been that it's one that makes more sense than the towns. And so when you have an opportunity to, I'd be very curious if you think there are any adjustments that, you would go to your union to try to make, or if it's something you would recommend to the town.
Yeah, and so I'm still learning the contract.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I was able to adopt last week. So more specifically, you're right, it's continued evaluation. It's not status quo. And more specifically, I'll keep saying, until New Hampshire figures out the right way to fund schooling, we have to be in a partnership now and the taxpayers, because that's where the majority of the dollars go. So in regards to the insurance, I'm sure you can talk to Mr. O'Brien on the call here. His negotiation skills, he can certainly work too. So
I talk to Mr. O'Brien regularly.
On the contract, excuse me, on the contracts, which ones come up when?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, you're ready. So
Sure.
teachers is on a 1 year because of the pandemic.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's why that expires at the end of this year. And then the support staff, it was just their time in the 3. So that's why it's fallen on the same year.
Thank you.
I don't know if that will continue to fall in the same year. That's all negotiation.
But for the contracts, it's like what happened last time we talked about 3 years. It's split over the increases are split over the course of the years, right? Yeah. So even if it hits on 1 year, it's not like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, thank you so much for answering our questions today. I was, one of the things that we've heard from the community the last few years is to try to find ways not to have to hire more people, to try to find some labor efficiency, I guess you'd say. And one of the things that we heard a lot about was expanding the use of VLAX so that we wouldn't have to say hire a new English teacher or a math teacher or something. Or perhaps for some of the specialty classes. What's your feelings on VLAX?
So I said last night, small town is great, but a small town also equals small capacity. So some of the internal evaluations that I've done on staffing already, I think we're at a really good level, if not maybe on the slim end. That's just initial evaluation. I think the previous administration has done a great job of trying to, I'll say, piecemeal certain things so that it wasn't a new hire or someone was teaching 2 different content areas, or we were paying someone extra to teach a 6th class rather than hiring a whole human being. I'll be really honest and transparent. I am a huge proponent of human beings teaching the kids. VLAX.
What is VLAX? Sorry.
VLAX is a virtual learning academy in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Initially, VLAX was created for the middle high school level, right? So if middle high school doesn't offer a certain class in their programs of studies, students could go to VLAX to take something like that. Or if you're an 8th grader and they don't offer geometry because of that, you could take geometry. VLAX last year obviously changed their entire business model to where they now started targeting younger students. To answer your question specifically, I think that will come out through the evaluation, the audit that we're going to do with staffing. I know we hired the 4th grade teacher through Esr, and that's going to bring extreme value following that. We're going to bring those classrooms from 22, 23 down to 16 and 17. Any teacher will tell you if they have 16 or 17 kids in front of them, it is remarkably easier than having 22 or 23, especially in the 4th grade level. I think through budgeting though, it's not necessarily staffing as it is hiring. So I prided myself on hiring diamonds in the rough, potential, right? Not necessarily a teacher transferring with 25 years experience into masters. Which will come in at 75,000. We may hire a new grad who maybe never has had a chance. I was just looking for that first year opportunity. They come in at 35, 34. So that's a $40,000 swing on one position. So I think our hiring practices are also going to be valued. That could make some huge gains for us in regards to staff.
Will we see, as part of this new contract process, what the teacher salary breakdown is? This is my first year on the budget committee, so I'm not familiar,
Yeah.
but
That'd be a new question for me. I don't know what's been provided.
What's the question again?
do we have the opportunity to see the salary breakdown across teachers? Like what?
You mean by person or do you mean?
Not, I mean, anonymized, but like data on what,
So
how much we're generally paying teachers.
I'm not sure how the data would come.
Last year, we got a tier breakdown.
Yeah.
And we
Okay.
also got how many people were in each tier.
Yeah.
And what the
Okay,
section was.
And then we compared it to other districts to kind of give a feel for whether or not Hopkinton teachers are underpaid based on our surrounding districts to really compare that.
okay, that's great. So
yeah.
will we get that this year probably at some point?
So
in the process?
you'll get what is paid out for this 1-year contract. There'll be no data on what will be agreed upon. That makes sense, meaning whatever the new agreement comes to, that won't go into effect until the next year.
So we got to reach an agreement
Yeah,
and we just, so we haven't, I think that's where we are right now. They started and, once, if they reach an agreement, we can deliver what's appropriate at that time. But as of right now, there's no agreement.
We have discussed in the past a few times whether the budget committee should see, or should the townsfolk see, what the total package is, compensation, salary, benefits, whole bit for each person. And of course, there's always been great resistance to that because again, it's a privacy issue, but companies do it, other organizations do it, other school districts do it. 1 year, the budget committee did see that information, by person. And I don't know if it really gave us much, but it sure gave you an idea of what the compensation is. One thing I wasn't going to bring up tonight, but I think we should somehow provide the total information, certainly to each teacher or each person on the staff, what their total compensation package is. Because when I worked for a company, I did that, and people were absolutely shocked how much money they were getting through FICA and all the other contributions that an employer gives to that person, benefit package, health insurance, in addition to their compensation. And it was very, very rewarding and revealing to everyone. And I don't know how far we can go with that or what your thoughts are on that, but some school districts show the whole thing to everybody. It's online. And again, I don't know whether that's necessarily something we want to do or think about, but it has been discussed many, many years.
And that's certainly something we can discuss as we move forward through my first budget cycle here. I can speak of past practices in my previous districts on ways to produce the information you're asking for without attaching a name to it specifically. That was our past practice. So I can certainly talk to the board about that in the office, figure out what the requests are and how we can achieve that. So that you're getting the information you need at the same time. I don't know what or why before, but I need to figure that out.
And I would say before, if members of this committee want that kind of information, we should talk as a committee about what is it you're looking for? Why do you want that information? Why do we want, how would we anticipate using it?
Agreed.
Because I don't want to ask you to do that information unless we're clear on on what's our purpose. I want to ask for information.
It's something I would go to the board and see their input on what they think.
Absolutely.
What I'd like to see is to give our superintendent an opportunity to do his first budget, with the Hopkinton School District. I came here a couple of years ago and I had said, give us an opportunity to let these board members do their job. And I think we came with you guys last year with, I'm not gonna use the word transparent because I know you hate it. You gotta take that out of your vocabulary. Yeah, gone. All right. But we came,
That's only mine.
but we came back with a new budget format. And we developed the finance committee, we developed the CIP committee. We worked hard because we heard what you guys were asking. Let him, I have all the confidence, I have only one board member of our superintendent to make his first budget and to work through the channels to get to this table. I think we should go down that path as a budget committee and let him do his job. And then if you think it's appropriate to have a discussion at the table on that information after you see what he brings here, I think it's a discussion worth having.
The other interesting one is where a union negotiation should be a public event, or should it be the way it is, which is totally closed door? That's also been a discussion that we've had here a number of times and have gotten, to come to no concrete request. That's just, very few are. It's an option that the school district has, but not many probably do it.
Yeah, I've never been a part of a public one. Really honest.
To be a Donnybrook. It could be a real Donnybrook.
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yeah, Norm, I definitely see what you're saying. I mean, this is like a first budget, and it's definitely worth seeing where we get to. But at the same time, it might also be a really good opportune time to also work more closely together as you're going through that.
Agreed.
So that instead of you kind of taking your best wild stab at what is going to be most helpful for us, we can also tell you what are the things that we're hoping to look for so that you can work those in earlier. I mean, it might be a better idea to work on those things earlier rather than.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean,
October is great. We get out stuff in October.
yeah, and I think, if the budget committee, I don't know when we're gonna get a number, but I do know we're gonna go through multiple steps, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Where if, in order to get to that number and get a recommendation from you, we have to meet, this committee needs to meet a little bit more. I'm happy to do that. The dialogue between the two parties and between Mr. Flynn and Michelle, I think, we're extending a handshake right here. He's here 21 days into the job. I think I got that right. Yeah. I wanted this for the board. I wanted this for the community, and he's crushed it. Rotary this morning, 5-hour board meeting last night. He's here tonight, and it's just been great to have that.
I'm hoping that with my timeline, we're having 4 meetings in October, specifically around budget, we're having a meeting, budget session, budget session. That if I'm providing you with an appetizing number, right, and hopefully it's, those questions would be answered rather than having to say, well, why is it this or why is it that? So it is a partnership. We'll certainly normally be reaching out, being represented and work together.
I would say the things that I feel like I've heard over and over on the budget committee, and I don't know how many years I've been on it now, 5, something like that, are, timeliness of the budget. So if you can bring it in October or November, that would be great. That would be a big step forward because we often get into a crunch period. So that's great to hear you talking about that. Managing the tax rate, you're talking about that. It's on people's minds. Personnel is related to that. It's great to hear your ideas of how you can manage whether it's your hiring processes or other things. It's not just about number of FTEs. It's about the different ways that you manage, because personnel and all the associated costs are what drives the school budget. And then the third thing is really around, we'll say that the typical person's community's ability to comprehend the budget. It's a very complicated budget, and you touched on that. And I think that's a place where last year progress was made for sure. And there's probably still room for improvement, and you touched on that too. So, those are the 3 things that I would emphasize. And one specific thing on the final point is the budget committee worked with the school a couple of years ago first to ask for a programmatic budget as a companion piece. And I think it was helpful. I think people process financial information in different ways. So for some group of people, that was helpful because they can begin to see, well, how much are we investing in English across our 3 buildings? How much are we investing in, social sciences, hard sciences? And I would encourage you to continue to do that as
On
well.
that point, I know Michelle about budget today. One of those things that you just reviewed earlier, that extra money in here was a huge infrastructure upgrade for us. So business office, $13,000 investment in e-finance software. So that it's going to allow for greater depth, better reports, not just high level. We're going to be able to dive into things that they haven't been able to do. I'd say we're moving out of the Stone Age, which is a good thing. So hopefully those things that we can produce will also close those gaps.
What do you finance software?
It's e-finance.
Oh,
So
that's the name of it, okay.
e-finance,
Got it.
Further questions for the superintendent? Comments?
I just want to thank him for coming.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Very much.
Really much. Thank you.
And I mean this, ask Norman anytime for anything.
We do.
I'll make sure Norm asks Jim, and then I'll talk to Jim. No, seriously, anytime, it really is a partnership. When the schools are successful, the towns are successful. All right,
Perfect.
all right, thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I need to leave as well. Thank you.
You are hereby excused.
Thank you so much, and I'll bring you the doctor.
You did not use the official excuse one.
Let the record show that committee member ready. Great. Norm, anything else for us tonight?
No, I took up an hour and 15 minutes of your time. I think I got everything. Thank you, sir.
Worthwhile. Thank you. Great. Okay, we are going to move on to the town financials update from Ken, which we expect will not take an hour and 15 minutes.
I'll try to keep it under that. Deb had sent out the summary budget revenue and expense sheets a couple of days ago. Does anybody want a hard copy?
Okay, then.
Thank you.
Need a hard copy?
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you need something, Tom?
No, okay.
Yeah. awesome.
Okay. Okay, I'll start with the revenue side, comparing estimated revenues for 2021. And again, remember, the town is on a calendar year basis as opposed to the school. And there's good news and some not so good news. In terms of our estimates, we're doing much better in terms of motor vehicle permits and, as I regularly say, buy new cars.
Hmm.
And the estimates of what we expect to get from the state for room and meals tax and highway block grant, now we're thinking we're going to get at least 100,000 more than we had estimated. So right there is about 200,000 to the good. There are a number of other items there that are really just timing issues, whether it's ambulance fees or other, when the state normally doesn't pay us until the end of the calendar year. The one issue that is troublesome is in the line payment in lieu of taxes. Our largest pilot agreement is with St. Methodius, the camp on Lake Joe Sylvia. They normally have to pay us over 100,000 a year. They're 2.5 years behind. We've spoken to our attorney, we've spoken to them, our attorney has spoken to them, and we'll see how we proceed. But I just wanted to highlight that it is an issue. And how it'll be resolved is to be determined.
Where are they on here?
Well, it's the line 3, 3186, account 3186. Payment in lieu
Oh,
of
perfect. Got it.
taxes.
Okay.
So how much of that 162,000 is approximately at risk, should we say?
Over 100.
Or how much is, yeah, I mean, you've got a $162,000 revenue budget on Pilt. How much would you say is at risk?
Over 100.
Oh, over 100. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I didn't.
And the rest would be just regular people.
The next largest is the fairgrounds. And, we've had discussions with them, but we totally anticipate that by the end of the year, they will have paid what.
Right, because the revenue from the
Committed to.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, others are much smaller by comparison.
If it rains during the fair, we probably won't get too much.
We've got a contract.
Right.
We've got a contract with the St. Methodius.
Yeah.
And like I said, our attorneys have been contacting them.
What exactly is line item 3357 flood control?
That's Elm Brook, that area that a number of years ago, the state, the federal government had it flooded and set up for dams for flood control. And the state has to pay the different towns that were impacted a certain amount a year. Jim's not on anymore, but in past years, there were a number of times when we've had to fight the state to make sure we got our payment. But this year, as far as I know, there's no issue.
Just a little background that it was kind of political because the payment comes from Massachusetts originally. Because the dam process was put in to protect Lowell and Lawrence, Massachusetts. And Massachusetts has to pay New Hampshire. If they pay, sometimes they haven't. They've been delayed. New Hampshire state doesn't necessarily even pay Hopkinton. So it's one of those political things with at least three chains.
And it's not just Hopkinton, there are other towns that are impacted also, but I believe we are the largest in terms of dollars.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to add that this spring, that big heavy rain that we had, I watched the river gauges on my phone because we have croplands along the river. And we would have gotten 7,000 cubic feet per second during that big rainstorm about 3 weeks ago, but the dam stopped it and only gave us 5. And later on when they released it, so that would have caused damage in Hopkinton, big damage, 7,000 cubic feet a second.
And Elm Brook did close to the public, I believe, twice
Yeah.
because
It
of
did.
flooding there.
It would have flooded the restaurant. and everything.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on the revenue side?
To the transfer station income, that looks like it's like sort of on track. I've heard a lot of people talk about transfer station income. Is that looking good or bad or?
The one item that's not reflected in there revenue wise at this point is greenbacks. And once we reflect that, it should be on pace. We'll move on to the expense side. And There, I would, again, there are some things that are timing and because of timing, we've in effect paid for the year already, or most all of the expenses, whether it's IT services, legal is running on the high side. For one of the reasons I just mentioned, solid waste, because we had to do more testing relating to PFAS, but we think most of that is taken care of. Welfare vendors, there is a separate reserve so that if the welfare accounts run over, we go to the reserve for that. The one item that's of particular relevance is under long-term debt principal and interest. And let me just read what Neil and I have put together on this. This line's overspent by $106,000. There will be no additional expenditures out of this line for the remainder of the year. And after research, it appears that during the refinance, the bond bank anticipated using budgeted funds as part of the payoff for the previous road bond. The regular payment of $106,000 for the previous road bond was paid in January, and then the actual payoff happened in February. So that's why it's reflecting as running so high here. But what I want to point out is that we had stressed when we did the refinancing that we would be saving the town's payers about $300,000 over the life of the bonds. And that's still the case. It's just we've had to pay some more upfront.
Front end.
And but we do we will make sure that we do not overspend the amount that had been appropriated at town meeting for town expenses. Norm, did you have a question?
I did. Your cemeteries, you're close to the end. Is it because it's like more of a seasonal type of thing?
Cemeteries, the town pays everything, and then there's a split of the costs with the cemetery reserve funds.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So we will, at the end of the year, they'll end up spending what they were budgeted.
Got it for it.
As far as the town is concerned.
And then legal fees is just some issues you discussed. Maybe that's kind of, okay. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
The other items I'd want to mention is that the American Rescue Plan, we're anticipating getting 500,000 plus. We have not held any public hearings or had any discussion yet on how to spend those funds. We are a lot more limited than maybe the school is. It's water, infrastructure, sewer, stormwater.
Lead pipes,
Yeah, that would be underwater. And just on very preliminary basis, Neil and I have been talking about what could we do Cedar with that. Cedar's been a problem, Cedar Street, for many years. And the sewer there, the stormwater is a real problem, as well as just the road itself. But that's, like I said, there's not been any public hearing. It's very preliminary at this point. More than preliminary even.
We know we had $7 million of, it was like $7 million of road infrastructure.
Behind in terms of.
10, yeah, so there's no shortage of good places. I wonder, Ken, just if there's an opportunity to look at how that money can be invested in a way that might help to increase the tax base. And so I just think about like some of the things that have been talked about in terms of extending sewer and water up to exit 6, or just, if that's at least could be a consideration when the select board talks about
Certainly.
those funds.
Yeah, I mean, anything that's allowable by the federal guidelines is for discussion.
Is it a one-time or is it something you withdraw from?
We get the money, it's over 2 years.
2 years
But
and,
we have until, I believe it's 2024 to spend it.
okay, so it's just like what we have with the Esr, you can go in there and grab it based on the criteria for what you can use it for?
I think we get the money up front,
Oh, okay,
and then we have to
okay, got it.
defend how we use it.
Yeah, yes, makes sense.
The other item I wanted to just mention is the road bond. We have, the thought was we do the culverts at Kearsarge, Briar Hill, Boundtree, and Tyler Bridge on the Pennacook Road Bridge. Turns out, well, Kearsarge and Briar Hill, I believe, are done. Tyler Bridge, it turns out, needs a lot more work than we anticipated. And we're now seeking new bids on, can we just do some of the work at this point? While staying safe, obviously. So just how that works out, again, is a item to be determined. And probably the Boundtree culvert will be postponed because of that. We'll have to see how much work can be done by our DPW people as opposed to outside contractors.
Tyler Bridge at least has an acceptable alternate route.
But it's what, 6 miles, 8 miles?
Well, going to the dump, it really isn't any different, for me.
For you and me, yes.
But I don't know for anyone else either, because you just go to Webster and they just only across the way on
Yeah.
Dustin Road.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
one
think
of,
we should be making bridges seem like public safety issues that we should take care of.
absolutely, but it's just, it costs $1 million hypothetically, and we thought it was going to cost $500,000. Where does the other half come from? Unfortunately, it doesn't look like American Rescue Funds.
Culverts
Use that.
10 times what they used to be 5, 6 years ago.
And-
That's
and-
killed us,
Yes.
every town, killed us.
Absolutely. At our town crew does, a lot of the work, and they do a great job. That really saves.
Well, there's more money coming. Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. I think there is more money coming, we won't know how much and for what for some months now, but.
Yeah, for the infrastructure, yes,
Infrastructure.
that would be beneficial.
Great, Ken. Anything else?
I'm finished unless there are questions.
Quick question, what is your rate on the road bond that you got?
It's much less than yours, it's about half of yours.
Well,
Yes, it's about
The
0.
town is more creditworthy.
It's mind blowing how cheap it is.
Yeah.
0.8.
It's-
When did you
it's-
have the bond run?
When did we do the run?
0.8%.
Just
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean.
borrowed more.
Yeah, we should do the whole entire school budget.
Well, that's,
For the 10 million, do all the roads.
that's why we did the refinancing at the same time.
Right.
To
0.8.
take advantage of that, and that's saving the 300,000.
Is there any discussion so far about doing, like what Don just kind of joked about, doing a huge road bond? Because if we can get 0.8, I mean.
Oh, no, that's, well, 0.8 is gone now.
Right. I mean, yeah, we're still like below inflation.
There's been no talk at the select board level about doing another bond now.
Because we just got ours at 123.
Yeah, I mean, if the budget committee wanted me to say to the select board, we think you should do a $10 million road bond.
I think we should fix the bridge.
We will, the bridge will be kept safe no matter what.
If it's in the purview of the budget committee to do something like that.
Yeah, no, we can wait until other business, and I'm happy to mention.
Sorry.
I'm happy to bring that up if we go.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I have some stuff about this too.
Any further questions for Ken?
Great job. And the road bond was how many years? Is it 10 or? Okay, so we're 20, so. okay.
Norm is super jealous right now.
I am.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. Mr. Houston, this one,
Yes,
Steve Houston.
Don't do that to me.
for the Kentucky Village precinct, I don't have much information. They had to postpone their meeting tonight. Somebody couldn't go. So it's still next week, and all their paperwork is done just before the meeting. So what I have is back to the end of May, which doesn't really mean much. But as far as I know, nothing unusual is happening. Their expenses are going the way they normally would be. The project up at Main Street has been finished and grass is growing, so that pipe is in and done. That project's done. That's about all I have. I'll have a way more next time around.
Done. Very good. Thomas, Village Hopkinton.
Hi, we're the village update. This will be pretty quick too. There's not a whole lot of updates. Nothing really happens in the summer, so we're right on track for village expenses. So far, we spent a little over 7,000 in expenses. The vast majority is electricity, as it always is. And then the water, so far we spent about $23,000 on the upgrades we spent so far this year. A lot of this expense happened last year, and then there was pause while we try to figure out the remaining expense, but it's back on track. And so that's pretty much it.
Great. Any questions for Thomas?
Get off easy.
We've only got like 13 streetlights.
You're lucky.
You can visit them on the way up.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, well, seeing that there are no members of the public, they all got tired out at the school board meeting last night.
Yeah, long night.
We can move on to any other business to come before the board. And I'm going to start with by passing this out. This is a workshop on municipal budgeting and finance. This is, by all accounts, a really excellent workshop that is made available, and I would encourage folks, if you happen to have the time, to consider going.
Mark, if I could just add,
This year,
I've attended this a couple of times in person previous years, and I think it's a very valuable workshop if you possibly have the time.
and a good deal, $70. And I don't know if the town would is able to offset the cost of budget committee members participating, but if anybody is interested in participating and wants to explore that, you can either email me or you could call me.
I believe that the town does.
Yeah, okay. Oh, good, even better. So if you're interested in that, you can also email Ken or Neil directly.
Neil, Norm, we're not going to cover the cost for you.
You're on your own.
Yeah, I
Chris,
just,
not to put pressure on you, but this is
I'm
something.
sorry, what was it there about just now? I'm sorry.
he said he's not schools. I'm
No, no, no.
I heard that. Before that, you said somebody was going to be covering.
Oh, if the town will be covering the cost, if
Don Houston.
anybody from the budget committee would like to attend.
Houston.
Yeah,
It'd be, good for a new member to go to something like this. This is the first time the chairman has basically, brought something like this out in a school as the same kind of thing. And I don't know if any of the school members in the past have ever been to.
So we go to, I'm not actually the last board member to go to it because of a wonderful situation, but we go to a training in order to learn some things, and it was very informative when I went. I'm as a school board member. They still offer it, but it's been a unique situation now where they have not offered it in person. It's more virtual. But I'm even a little interested in this, but
great.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
yeah,
So
to ask questions.
there it is. It's available to you. It's all virtual this year. And reach out to Neil if you're interested in participating. What other business? Thomas?
Yeah, I've got No, I definitely want to talk about the bond thing if people are up for it. I don't know if people want to.
Go ahead, let's start.
Well, also, I was also wondering if there might be an appetite from the board for doing some preemptive analysis before we get to the January budgets. It seems like we kind of get to a place in January where we're looking at trying to figure out what is a good or a bad budget. I was wondering if there's any possibility we can come up with like projected targets, and I don't know how helpful that would be to the school or the town, but saying like a preemptive even before they start the budget of just looking at this is where property values are going, this is where cost of roads and schools are going, this is what we generally expect the budget to land at.
So like a pre-agreement, like not an agreement, but kind of have a feel for, I know what you're saying, just not saying that.
Yeah, so like instead of trying to figure that stuff out in November, right, or in January, like we get to January, we get a budget, a number that's an increase. And then we'd say, is this a normal increase or a bad increase or a good increase? Is there any way we can come up with what would be a normal or a good or a bad increase before we get there? So that then, I mean, there'd be a little bit more guiding light to the town and schools so that there's a starting point for discussion at least.
Yeah.
Didn't we last year have like a guideline?
It's 4%.
I was gonna say 3 or 5.
So we've done, yeah, I think we've done some very, what I would say is rudimentary guidance around, we're not going to be enthusiastic about a budget that is, results in a net tax rate increase above X. Right? And so I think that's good. And we've talked about consumer price index and some other indicators that might help us to think about what would be an appropriate level of tax increase that the town might, but I think you're going a little deeper inside. Maybe you could help us to think about what are some of the indicators or metrics or trends we might want to explore if we were to try to come up with some guidance.
Yeah, because I feel like this year is going to be super weird because like property values increase.
No, it's not a revalue year.
No, I know it's not a revalue, right? But so if even if this year isn't a revalue year, like that effect is seen generally over the course of 10 years, right? So this year won't be a revalue year. And so you won't see a property tax rate decrease this year, but then in 2 years when the revalue does happen, then you would see a massive change because we're not looking at a change over, if property values change year over year, this year 25% in New Hampshire, that's the median household value, 25%. So we won't see that effect this year, but in 2 years when it happens, and if our metric is saying we want to have our property tax rate at $27, $28 per thousand, and that's what we're targeting now, then in 2 years, our budget would increase by 25% because that's what our target is. And so this year is going to be really weird because the property values are increasing by so much. Inflation is making everything cost a lot more. The cost of building roads is going up substantially, and we have no idea what people's incomes are doing. And so if people's incomes are going really far down, maybe we really should be looking at cutting budgets instead of trying to keep up with inflation or whatever. That's how much people can pay. But I don't have right now, I don't have a good idea of what those numbers land at. And if we start looking at what those numbers should be in January, I feel like we might be behind the ball a little bit.
I see what you're saying, and I like it. My first thing I was gonna say before you did was the two boards need to discuss, we're starting our budget in October. And if we're starting it, there should be some discussions of two boards in September about, what we're
I
doing.
believe we're meeting in September. The joint boards.
That's great. So that gives us an opportunity to have a discussion. Last year, I said I was open to discussions about, we had two different values in the tax rate in our last presentation. It was very confusing to the community when we did the presentation. I couldn't accept it last year. It was too late in the game. I would entertain a really healthy discussion between two boards on that. I don't think the whole budget committee and board, but I mean, I'm just trying to think of what is the best way for everyone to be able to understand, Tom. That's what I'd like to see.
The reason why I bring it, I mean, that's something that we could easily do. We could easily say, here, this is the number we want to use. And that way, I mean, I'm trying to come up with a way that we can do a little bit more during the year instead of of just that
Just
last
be
month.
reactive
because,
at the very end.
you know, having the select board and the school board try to come together, that's a lot of people trying to come together on a budgeting item, when that's something we could spend our time discussing and help out.
The most enlightening thing that I think Mike said, and all the good news that he brought to us, was that he would like to get into the negotiations saying, the school may need this year, the town backs off. The town needs extra this year, the school needs to back off. That is a total new ballgame, which is fantastic.
That's just more collaboration with each
Oh,
other.
It's so enlightening. It's never happened before.
Yeah, and
It happens on the select board side. It's always giving.
well, I think there's some complementary things that are being talked about here, Norm. So, I mean, our fundamental role of the budget committee is to provide advice and guidance on the prudent use of taxpayers' funds to meet our community's needs. And two of our primary audiences are the select board and the school board. Because ultimately, we have to vote on and approve and present your budgets to the community, as you know.
Yep.
So if a member or members of the budget committee would like to explore what are some indicators and metrics and things that we can look at to provide some earlier input and guidance, we should do that.
Yeah.
And then the school board and the select board will do as you always do, which is to decide how much you want to take that into account.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but I think it would be good, and I think that'd be helpful. We just need to figure out what is that information that we would want to take
Right.
a look at.
And I would also like to kind of rephrase what I was trying to say too, and not say it as providing a target, but more as like as if we can start our discussions earlier as to what we would expect or what we'd be happy with.
Yeah.
Even if it's just us talking, so that when we do get hard numbers in front of us, we have a starting point of this is a good place or a bad place.
I think Mike is, so his mindset is to plan ahead, where previous, this is what for you, previous school boards only wanted to look at in March, at the deadline of March of that current budget, no further ahead. Never could get a CIP, couldn't get the long-term planning. And that's what you're talking about. We as a budget committee need to talk about, look out 3 to 5 years.
Right.
You know, this $10 million road thing is not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. Anticipating funding from the federal government's one thing, but we still need to put that in place in a plan.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, and then supplement it perhaps with other funding through the town.
Right.
But those kinds of things is what I think we need to lay out and have 3 to 5 years out.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of like, we're not gonna have a property revaluation this year, but we know one's gonna come up, and we know now, because we've seen the last 2 years, we know kind of probably what that's gonna be. So be able to look out 4 years as to what a property tax rate might be in 4 years and what our targets are gonna be. So where do we wanna land this year?
I think maybe I'm missing something, but the inflation of the value of homes does not necessarily lead to a tax rate increase, assuming your expenses stay the same.
It would lead to a decrease. If your taxes stay the same,
Correct.
nothing about the property value changes how much any single person has to pay in dollars.
Right, Your
It just
tax
changes
rate,
that- just changes
your
that
tax rate goes down,
Right,
All else being equal.
all it's gonna use, so.
but it doesn't usually happen, but you know, it's not a 1-for-1.
But that's what I'm trying to say, like, what are the factors we can look at to say, this is where, what, are we trying to hit a tax rate increase? Are we trying, or a set tax rate? Are we, as a budget committee, are we trying to say,
Okay.
this is how much the normal person, the normal household can pay in taxes? Those are two different numbers. Which one of those do we want to look at in terms of what the final budget?
Christine.
Thank you. I think Norm actually was trying to talk for a while.
No. It clicked what he was saying. No, just, man, so basically you would so the budget committee came up with something that you came up, you presented, and we all agreed. We would bring that to our boards to discuss and try to make those factors or those targets. And if we make those targets and those factors, I don't want to say we'd be locked into your agreement, but we would meet the factors of what was agreed upon for the budget committee as a goal. Basically giving us a goal of what you're looking for from each board.
Or at the very least, we would get to January and
Yeah.
have some sort of feeling amongst all of us about if that's a good place to land or if it works.
Tom, where Mike was saying he's looking to have the budget by October. That's a whole different world than what we've been seeing. So I'm wondering if, how much of what you're suggesting would
Oh,
be
yeah, no,
necessary at this point.
I didn't see that coming at all, because like if we get budgets in October, then we can do this entire process with actual real budgets it'd be a totally different story.
I think we should go through this thought process before October
It can't hurt.
to get our arms around where we're philosophically coming in at.
I think, again, my first year, but it makes sense to me to start thinking, what are the economic trends in terms of home values, tax rates, potential infrastructure money that we think strongly might come in, and at least map out at a very high level, similar to what Mike said about the community or the school in the town, looking ahead to offset each other's expenses some years, what the budget committee expects the world to look like for our tax rates in our community in the next 3 to 5 years. That feels like it would be helpful, especially this year coming out of a pandemic, for our committee to do some thought about what we realistically think the community can absorb. Like, for example, as a KPI, I don't know what is our unemployment rate in our community versus the national unemployment rate. Are we doing much better and we think that our community can absorb some increases better than the average community, or are we doing worse? Like those types of data points, I think at least it would help me understand what the community can take in.
Anecdotally, one question that we've had at town meeting is, well, what's going to happen to payment of property taxes? Or people, a lot of people are going to fall.
Right.
What we found is that actually the payment rate has been better.
Sorry, what?
The property tax payment rate has been better.
Yeah.
Let's forget about St. Bartholomew's. But
Everybody's home, it's easier to pay your bills. So I've been writing down some things that folks have been saying, because some of these we could put together and some of them we can collect ourselves. Individual members of this committee could volunteer to do that. There are certain things we could ask Neil. I've written down multi-year property value trends and what is the timeline. I think Ken knows this, but just to refresh us on for property revaluation. What might that suggest in whether it's 2 years or 3 years from now, given the multi-year property value trends, income trends, price indices, unemployment rates, local versus statewide. I'm just curious if there are other things that come to mind for you that we might just want to start gathering information on that could inform us as we think about how we respond to different kinds of budget proposals.
you mentioned inflation rate, one fashion or another.
Yeah, I put price indices, but yeah, inflation rates. Thank
Social
you.
Security.
Yeah, especially since, and along with Social Security, I would also say the percentage of retirees,
Yeah, I was gonna say that too.
because we're at the last number I got was like 27%, which is one of the highest in the state.
Do we have any way to collect data on like new families moving in?
Schools, huh?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If we age, kind of get a feel for that.
Yeah.
Because that
demographic
helps with not getting funded for pupils and stuff like that. That'd be a more enrollment thing, I guess, too, possibly of collecting data, of people who moved in.
Who's the census, whatever that, I'm blanking on the acronym, whoever does the census does have age breakdowns for zip code. So that could also be a good.
Isn't that supposed to come out in a week or something?
They actually do it quarterly. So they do a really thorough tenure, but they do quarterly, every year they do quarterly breakdowns of certain metrics.
Something I've been trying to work with Neil for 2 or 3 years to come up with, and this gets back to the fact of who can afford their taxes and don't give a darn about it, and who are really in jeopardy and need some help. And one of the ways to look at that was the numbers that we have is segregate the value of homes in Hopkinton. If you take below 200 or whatever that magic number is, and find out how many homes are in that situation. And those are the folks that are really probably hurting more in taxes than the ones owning the $800,000 and $600,000 homes. It's a simple sort. I mean, he has all the information. But when you start talking about, what's your target? Well, what's our target here to help you? It's really the people who are complaining about their taxes because they're usually the ones that can ill afford paying them. There's an association there. Not necessarily direct, but there's an association, and we've never been able to get any of those stats.
So there's what the home is worth, then there's what the income is, and then that gets you to a number that is the percentage of your income that you're paying in taxes. And so that is.
Is there any way to get to the income? That's a tough one.
So I think so.
You took a swing at that, I remember last year, I started to gather some data. I think that's really interesting when you look at percent of income.
So I got from Neil the breakdown of all the home values. And then you can get median incomes. So you can't match up the home value to the income, but you can take the median and the average and you can compare those and it gets you kind of close-ish.
It's all about discretion. It's all about discretionary income.
Right. Right.
Somehow you have to also factor in over the last year or two, at town meeting, we've approved much higher tax break rates for low-income seniors, that kind of factor in. I think I heard at one point, if you were a low-income senior living in the Meadows, for instance, not going to have to pay anything.
Is that true? Do we know? I assume that data is somewhere, like what exactly is the low income threshold?
Well, yeah, we know, we know what the low income threshold is, let's say defined by the town before you would get a tax break.
Okay.
But does the individual have to come and approach you to tell them the income, or?
Yeah, they have to prove it.
There's no way you can get that information, as a database.
I don't know how to do
Tom, you might figure that one out.
that.
Well, I mean,
I've got a lot of numbers in a spreadsheet. We can come up with something.
I would love to see something.
So, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I've been writing down, we can compare lists of stuff, metrics and stuff, but I'd be happy to put together historical numbers on some of these things that we can look at.
Great.
And then we could talk about what we'd want to maybe look at as metrics for coming up with targets.
that'd be great. And, and I mean, Neil is super helpful, obviously, as a resource. He has the information. We'll get it to you. So if you want to take a swing at that and we can put that on the agenda for our next committee meeting to share what.
I think that the only concern I have, and I trust the numbers, you'd be working with Neil, so when you bring it, they would be confirmed from the town and all that. That's great. That's, we're looking at actual numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's all that matters. Okay, perfect.
And then this harkens back to, which was it, a year or two ago, we talked a lot about if we're going to have materials that we're going to discuss the budget committee, if we can share them with, oh my God, with Deb beforehand, so they can be put up on the website as material, for any member of the public. They should choose to join us. They'll have access to that information. She just needs it a day in advance.
Okay.
Does anyone want to talk about bonds? Road bonds?
Have at it. You want to introduce that?
So, yeah, I mean, if we're really getting rates like that are lower than, much lower than building expense increases.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if we were able to offer a bond, if we get a low interest rate, would we get anybody to bid on projects? That's another issue we're having right now. And I think if the stimulus funds come out in great magnitude, it's going to be even worse, and prices are going to be, going up that much more. So, I don't know
Yeah.
when is good timing.
Plus, if we get stimulus funds, we might not need the bonds.
Right, I don't think that should deter us to do the exercise.
Right.
I think Dan Blanchett said he would conceive that, so I think I'm reading it right, only about $1 million worth of road work could he, in essence, supervise, do himself part of it, et cetera. So it's not all of a sudden we're going to do $10 million, but spread this out.
Yeah.
But we're way behind the curve. We're only doing, what, 300,000 or 400,000 now. We should be at least double it, more like 800,000 a year.
Excluding.
Right.
So it's like the idea being, instead of doing bonds for projects, just significantly increasing the road budget, annual road budget.
Right, which I think you heard, you'd like to see the capital improvement just put in another $500,000 a year. We haven't figured out how to get that. And obviously bonding would be, if it's the right approach, the right timing, would be the way to do that. But I think we should go through the exercise because we need to educate the public as to what dilemma we're into. The only road people are concerned of is the one they drive on.
We've raised road issues, how many years now?
We haven't done so much in that. You selectmen have not been so eager to do
We've
that.
had two bonds in the last.
No, but it's been peanuts. Peanuts. It's something. but it's
$4
been
million
peanuts.
over the two of us. And we increased the line items for the operating expenses. But yeah, I would totally agree with you that we are behind. I think we are slowly catching up and only slowly.
A curious thing just popped up in my mind. If we took out a big bond and fixed all the roads, $10 million bond or whatever, what happens when those roads all start breaking down at once 10 years from now? Do we go onto this cycle of, if you were to do what you just suggested, would we get onto the cycle of not contributing enough money to our maintenance of our roads and then 10 years have to take out another bond to get caught up again?
I think you would pay them all, and then you would increase the road budget slightly so they could do more maintenance. And then you could also start putting annual money into a CIP to not take out a bond for 20 years. Instead of taking out a bond, you have the money to start doing it.
But it's true what Rich is saying. We would never want to do that because the ideal road is every 5 years you reseal it again.
Yeah.
So you'd have to be resealing $10 million worth just for that. That's not going to do all of
So
it.
you gotta do them in tranches.
You got to do them in stages so that you can get.
Can you take out a bond now and lock in the rate and then just hold the money and use it over the course of 5 years?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I assume you probably could, paying the interest on it, and it would just be sitting there.
Yeah,
And-
definitely.
and
Well, you
then-
could invest it over time and probably get more than 0.76%
Well, even if you-
return.
That's why it's so interesting right now, is because the inflation rate is higher than the bond rate. So like the amount that we'd have to pay back is less than the money that we'd be taking out.
This exercise should be done though, just to get more people involved with what's involved.
Yeah.
What's the exercise that you're just, I want to kind of name it so we can figure out if there's a next step. What is the exercise that you're talking about?
Just the roads or the general?
Well, you've said a couple of times now, Don, we should do this exercise. I want to just maybe get.
A
more
3 to
specific.
5 year budget forecast.
It'd be like, what's gonna happen to the roads? What we're gonna spend if we do nothing? What we're gonna end up spending if we took out a bond and paid for them all? What we'd end up spending if we increased the CIP X amount to effectively pay for all the roads over the next 10 to 15 years. But there's like it sounds like there's 5 or 6 different ways you could pay to repair all the roads over the course of 10 years. So it'd be, how much effective money now would we save doing either one of these different routes? Does that sound?
Right, but I think the big picture is a 3 to 5 years for all that we look at, school, roads, the town, everything. But of course, a big chunk of that is going to be the elephant in the room, which is the $10 million backlog in roads. But I think that's a subset of the real look at what we're trying to do. I'm sorry, I can't.
Oh, no, that's okay, but and I think what I heard you saying, Thomas, no, sorry, is you're looking at, if you were to say, what do we really need to invest over 10 years in roads? Here's different scenarios for how you can come up with that money. What's the most cost-effective way essentially
Right,
to do that?
right, because then, I mean, there
Run the
might be-
models.
Right, and there might be a most cost-effective way that has us spending way too much money and no one's gonna want to do that, so.
Yeah, it might not be politically
You're gonna-
acceptable.
yeah, you're
but you
gonna find
can
them.
At least have it, at least have, it can allow you to have a
Yep,
public
yep,
conversation about trade-offs.
The key is that we educate the voting public that we've got a lot more to go. And the roads is a specific problem. You say, you know, see the street's a nightmare, but you know, that's, who knows whether we can get that one done with it. But there's all kinds of roads that we can, and bridges.
But my, you know, what I would say is, we have said this at town meeting after town meeting after town meeting. You know, and because of that, we have gotten, you know, 2 bonds approved fairly recently. So we're starting to get at it. I don't have any objection at all to what you're proposing.
The next step, I think, is to elaborate it more and to keep pushing the issue. Because, you know, we've got a long way to go.
This is also something that digging through a lot of historical numbers on the bonds I found really interesting is that the town tends to take out smaller bonds every 2-ish years and then holds a really steady level of spending of just bonds. And then the school takes out really large chunks every 15 to 20 years. And then that spending goes down and then jumps back up. Like the spending on principal and interest. So it's interesting, like, I don't know which one of those is better or preferred, but it's interesting that the town and the school take 2 very different approaches on it. So it'd be interesting to see what the roads would look like on both those approaches.
Good.
Well, that would be an interesting conversation also to have with Neil to see, you know, what his appetite is for working on something like that.
Right.
And with the select board. of
Sure,
course.
yeah.
Got a lot of free time.
Endless amounts.
Okay, you good for tonight?
Yeah, sorry.
Good. Any other business to come before the board or the committee?
I was just wondering, will we have a committee of 9 this year? Or 10?
So, yeah, so
Should we discuss this in closed session? We're
Probably.
talking health.
yeah,
I'll make the motion to go into non-public under reputation.
okay. Is there a,
I'll second it, and I guess for Cindy's purposes, we will not discuss anything once we can come at her. We'll just adjourn.
right, we will adjourn after this. So our motion is to go into non-public session based on reputation protection.
Yeah.
What was that non-public session?
Based on reputational considerations.
Yeah.
I don't know the formal language.
Yeah, under reputation, it's an RSA. I don't, Yeah.
I should.
we can get that for you. Yeah, we can get you the RSA. And then,
I'm uneasy with the term reputation.
Okay.
Is there a difference?
Personnel health.
no,
Personnel,
Private.
personnel.
personnel, fine.
RSA 91 dash large A colon 3.
Oh, are you saying this for me?
RSA
Sorry.
91 dash A, capital A, colon 3, Roman 2, little a, personnel.
Perfect.
Unfortunately, we have that for select board. At times.
Before we vote on this clarification, we're not talking about a staff person. Does personnel apply to elected committee members as well?
Yes, we have, and
Okay. And I will confirm that with Neil, Cindy, to see if that's the appropriate reference.
Okay.
If we need to adjust that reference. Are you comfortable with that, Don?
yes.
Thank you for raising that.
And if we're done, we need to shut this all off.
Right, we're gonna vote on that
That's
All
gonna
in
be a roll-
favor of going into?
I think that's
Sorry?
a roll call
Oh,
vote.
it has to be a roll call. Thank you. Okay, Thomas.
Thomas, yes.
Rich, yes.
Don, yes.
Ken, yes.
Norm Gupel, yes.
Mr. Scarry, yes.
And Mark, yes. Okay, I'm going to,
Let me turn this one off for.
I'm going to end the Zoom.
Yeah, we won't be coming back.